Good evening. I wanted to come back to the subject of Sepphoris and the story of Herod. I think I accidentally said Agrippa, Herod Antipas, and the city of Sepphoris. When King Herod the Great died, he had had one of his sons put to death, and the grandson of one who was put to death was also Herod. And a second son, Archelaus, then began to reign in Herod's place after he died. And this decision was taken together with Caesar over who should then inherit the throne. At the same time, Herod Antipas, who was a brother of Archelaus, was given the area of Galilee, which was a tetrarchy. And his half-brother Philip, who was also was named Herod Philip, was given the Decapolis, that is the area a little further to the east. And Herod Antipas and Philip were half-brothers. And Philip had married Herodia, and Herodia was also Herod Antipas's niece. So she would have been also the niece of Philip. So it was a very strange marriage in the first place. The story, though, in 17 BC, Herod Antipas started to, a little later than that, I guess, he started to rebuild the city of Sepphoris. And as we mentioned, the scripture actually leaves open what Joseph actually did for a living. Many scholars suggest the more correct translation was a craftsman, because he would have worked both with wood and with stone. Now, the city of Sepphoris was a little less than an hour's walk from Nazareth. And almost certainly Joseph would have been working on the rebuilding of the city of Sepphoris. There would not have been work in a place like Nazareth for a craftsman of his kind. Most people would have done their own building in any case in a small village. So as a craftsman, he would have been quite busy in the city. Sepphoris was the capital of the Tetrarchy up until about 17 AD, or AD 17, when Antipas built the city of Tiberias and moved his capital to the city of Tiberias. When the strife between King Aretas and the Jewish provinces had come to the point where Sepphoris was destroyed, Herod Antipas was married to Phasaelis, who was the daughter of Aretas IV of Nabatea. And this marriage was really a part of the treaty. So when Antipas fell in love with Herodias, his niece, or perhaps even a half-sister and niece, the family was very confused. She may have been both, actually. Anyway, when they fell in love, and Herodias wanted a divorce from Philip, which she eventually got. She was his niece or half-sister and niece both. The Herods were a very confused family. In any case, she was then going to marry Antipas. Now, Phasaelis was apparently, she was rather afraid that she might be put out of the way in some kind of untoward accident or something. In any case, she headed back for her father's home at Petra. And the area where John the Baptist was baptizing at the time was also in a part of Antipas's territory, although it was separated by another province. And she would have passed through there and gone back to her father Aretas. And Aretas might have come and sacked the city again, except that Caesar stood in the breach, and the battle didn't take place. A little later on, after the killing of John Baptist, Philip died, and Herod Agrippa then comes onto the scene. And Agrippa was, actually Caesar had appointed him as king of the Decapolis, or given him a higher title, because Agrippa had studied in Rome and had gone to school with both Caligula, who was a good friend of his, which might give you some idea of the character of the Herods, and also with Claudius, who became emperor later. And so he had a great deal of connection with the imperial family. Herodias was rather upset that Antipas was not given the title, the elevation, and the Decapolis. And she agitated, and of course Antipas didn't stop her, agitated also that Agrippa should not have had this throne and this title, that it should have been Antipas's. And the strife became great enough that Caesar intervened, and of course he was a friend and former classmate of Agrippa. So Agrippa was then given the whole territory, and Herod Antipas and Herodias were exiled to Lyon in France, in Gaul. And Agrippa then became the ruler of the whole region. And this is why the encounters with Agrippa will take place between Christ and Agrippa. The Christ calling him a fox. And Agrippa tried at least to present himself as a true Jewish representative. But we'll get to that part of the story later. We do want to say that Sepphoris was so important that after the destruction of Jerusalem, the Sanhedrin itself moved to Sepphoris, which was a priestly city already. And the Sanhedrin sat there for quite some time. That's where it met in council. So these few little historic sketches, and they're very sketchy, will give us a better idea of the story we're entering into when we go through the nativity story and then into the beginning of Christ's ministry afterward. And I just wanted to fill in a little bit of these historic details because it's much easier to understand what is taking place in the gospel. And the historical setting will give us really a response to some of the questions that arise. So we want to leave it at that now, and we'll carry on a little later. And thank you all, and God bless you, and I wish you all a joyous Nativity, a Merry Christmas, and a full feast of the Nativity of Christ.